Welcome to the Sons of Mjolnir podcast.
The Sons of... what?
This isn't your Sons of Macaroni, yeah!
The Sons of Mjolnir?
This is Sons of Mjolnir, yeah!
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sons of Mjolnir. As always, I am one of your hosts, Fat Thor.
I'm Cap.
And today we are joined by a very, very special guest, the other half of the HiveMind. We had Jackson Lansing on earlier. Now we have the other half of the writing duo, Collin Kelly, and they're going to be writing books such as Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Trek. I mean, the list goes on and on. Sentinel of Liberty just came to an end. Batman Beyond, Neo-Gothic. What do these guys not write? Collin Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. We couldn't be more excited to have you.
Fat Thor, Cap, thank you guys so much for having me. It's so good to know that Jackson was here, kind of paving the way for my arrival. But now I myself am here, and I'm so glad to chat with you guys today.
Awesome. Yeah, he opened the stage for you. Basically, our interview with Jackson was just an intro for this one. So we'll get going, and then
that's definitely how we work.
Yeah, hell yeah. So like I said, we're just super lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity to nerd out with you guys. So we'll get it going, and I mean, at the end, we'll decide, which one of you guys we like better, and we'll vote on it.
That's always a joke people make, and and we laugh, but honestly, it cuts such to the quick of our hearts. We hate that joke because we don't want anyone to try and choose which one of us they like more.
Well, I'm sorry I made it then. In all honesty,
you started on a real bad foot, man.
Yeah, Jesus. But in all honesty, we could never pick. But let's kind of
for those in podcast land, I am smiling.
Yeah, for all of our listeners out here, Collin is just all smiles all around. But let's kind of get into it. So like I said, we did have Jackson on, and we got to talk about a lot of stuff, and we really got into the nitty-gritty about some stuff. But surprisingly, with two episodes, we didn't even get to cover everything, because like I said, you guys are just everywhere these days and are just absolutely on fire. But before we get into that, take a step back a little bit and go to the early days of Collin Kelly, your kind of comic origin story. So we've been doing a little research on you guys, kind of learning what we can. And I saw that you talked about how one of your first comics you actually started picking up was Captain America. And you started getting them through the mail from your school book fair, I think you said.
Yep, absolutely.
And some of those early issues, you said it was Cap fighting in an Iron Man suit. I think specifically it was Cap 430 and like that era was when you kind of really started getting into it. Mm-hmm. So, and you also mentioned picking up books at the library and how that was very important to you and how you kind of got into the Nightfall series through that. So I wanted to ask, we are very big proponents of like libraries and local comic shops and all that stuff. So kind of wanted to ask, what was your experience like discovering all those books in your library? And also going back to, you were talking about getting comics in the mail, and a lot of times they'd be like rolled up. Do you remember like a specific one that was just like absolutely torn? Like you were like, I can't even read this. This is ridiculous.
No, so I never got anything destroyed in the mail. But also it was my first run of comics, so I didn't really understand that like maybe comics shouldn't be folded in half. Yeah. Which I think actually gave me a kind of a unique experience with them in that they're precious stories, but they're not precious items. Right, like the value of a floppy is that you can fold it up, toss it around, give it to a friend, hand it around. Like it became a transactional piece of like currency within a social circle, right? So it was like I loved having those floppies and having them folded up and ruined. It was Grunwald's run right after Capwolf. Ironically, okay. I started like right after Capwolf, considering Capwolf is one of the I absolutely love that stupid wolf man. But no, and then the library, right? I mean, all of us, not all of us, but every kid should get the opportunity to walk into a library and see it as like what it's supposed to be, which is a kind of a palace of storytelling, right? It's a gateway. There's a you know, it's this kind of magical place where you can go and you can find any kind of story you want. And I was lucky enough to stumble into the graphic novel section, and the buyer for our local library was a huge, a big Image fan and a lot of big DC fan, not a lot of Marvel stuff, but a deep catalog of DC work, and then stuff like Mage and Grendel, and a lot of kind of like stuff that maybe you wouldn't be exposed to normally as a young person. So yeah, I cracked open that library and I just started burrowing my way through that entire graphic novel section. So on the one hand, I treated floppies really disposably as kind of cultural currency, but I mean, a library book, no, that's treasure. Like you treat the library book like it's a precious object. So yeah, kind of like there was a kind of a totemic element to comics for me growing up. They were much more than just the stories. The actual objects of them had a lot of power.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. And do you remember, so like I said, you mentioned Cap, you mentioned Batman a lot. Do you remember, was it one of those, or do you remember, was there a specific comic in those early years that you were like, okay, like comics are legit, like wow, this is
tale as old as time, my guys. Watchmen.
Classic.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
very good show.
Like,
yeah.
And Watchmen hits like you're 14, right? Like you've been consuming stuff. You're like a precocious reader who's really ahead of the curve, and you're just gobbling up everything. And you read Lord of the Rings when you're like 11, and so you think you're real hot shit. And then you hit Watchmen at like right that age, and you're like, oh shit. I not only realize how much I need to learn, like as a storyteller, but also any preconceived notion that you might have that like, oh yeah, these are just kind of the fun fluffy stuff. It's like suddenly every adult who's like, comics are just for kids, you want to grab Watchmen and start slapping them with it and be like, fuck you, this is literature. Right. So yeah, Watchmen, the dual hit of Watchmen and Sandman at that sweet spot really just turned the whole game over for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it turned the game, like you were saying, for a lot of people. And really, those were two massive books that kind of, I think, shifted the public opinion on these funny books and showed like there's actual storytelling being done in these. So that's, I mean, like you said, tale as old as time. Everyone, I feel like, has that experience with those books.
Yeah.
I didn't actually start reading Watchmen. I think it was like 5 years ago whenever I first read it. Blew my fucking mind.
Yeah, and it's great because it does that no matter how old you are or how many comics you've read. Like you will always have that moment when you hit Watchmen and you're like, wow, lived up to the hype.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It really is as good as people say it is. It really is. So then fast forward a little bit, you're, delving into your comic journey, and then you find yourself at USC and you meet another fellow by the name of Jackson Lansing through a mutual friend of you guys. And so really everything started when you guys went on this road trip to Lala and you guys wrote your first script in the car. And, I want to mention too, you have mentioned that at first you weren't the biggest fan of Jackson and you kind of had a little, not rivalry, but kind of butted heads a little bit. You talked about what really kind of came around was you guys were in a writing class together and you would read his scripts of, I think, as you put it, like it was just two people talking to each other, but you were like engrossed with how well Jackson was able to do that. And on the flip side, Jackson talked about how you were really good at like very bombastic storytelling and like very like big action scenes and stuff like that. So do you find that that's still kind of your guys' dynamic today, or has that kind of shifted through the years?
Oh, I love that question. Let me just put the record straight on the initial kind of launching point then I want to like circle back because that is a great question.
Yeah.
But the way it actually broke down was that third friend of ours. I think he gets mentioned a lot in interviews because he's our third brother, right? Or second brother, right? Like we're a little unicycle. And he's
founder of the HiveMind.
He's exactly. He's the founder of the HiveMind in a lot of ways. He was like the guy who kind of made us kiss. But he was my best friend who I lived with. Then I left for a semester abroad. And when I came back, Jackson had taken my room. Like now, Jackson.
Oh, so not only did he take your friend, he took your room too. I didn't hear this.
My place.
Okay.
So I was like, who this? Screw this guy. Because also, you know, like you don't want to get replaced by like a bigger, better model. No one's bigger and better than Collin Kelly, but at the same time, Jack's tall and handsome and swarthy and like really clever and charming. And I'm like, and I, as previously mentioned, am kind of a gremlin, especially that point in my life. So I was like, how dare I be replaced? But yes, that was long buried. We clashed for a long time privately. I think he always liked me. But I'm an ass.
I think I saw too that you said that you wrote him as a villain in one of your screenplay. Do you remember what that role was? Was it just like a classic villain or
Dracula?
It was a crazy, no, it was a God, I'm processing now. It actually is kind of wild. Talk about like when you're 21, 22, 20, I guess, like you're kind of, this was God, I had a class that meant we settle down, Colin. I had a class where the entire point was to write as much as possible. It's like, oh, you think you can't write 10 pages in a week? Cool. You write 10 pages in a week, then you collapse that to 5 and you write another 10 pages, then collapse that to 10, then write. You every week we were basically doubling how many pages we wrote and then editing down and then doubling and then editing down. So it created these absolutely insane scripts. I wrote one that was it was kind of like it was a coming of age sex comedy set all in a Halloween party. And predictably, Jack was the cool, clever, like dude who was rolling around being like liking Phonogram and like knowing all the good music, right? He was like that he was that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was that kind of guy who was getting all the girls and who everyone thought was super cool.
So when I read that, I was thinking you made him like Cap was saying like Dracula or something like a
no, he wasn't like a mustache twirler. No, he was the ultimate villain. The guy the guy who wants to steal your girl.
The Chad.
The Jack. I know.
Yeah.
But as for kind of how that's evolved into our storytelling, we at this point, no, we both excel at either side and all sides. Like we've been training each other as well as just by the nature of what we do. Sometimes when we do want to, let's say if we're going to our junk food, right? Like maybe it's a hard week, maybe we got a lot to do and we're like, man, do you want to kind of do we want to do ourselves a favor and just kind of go with the flow? And if we do that, then in those cases, yeah, I tend to lean towards the action scenes and or that kind of the action or heavy side of things, and Jack tends to kind of lens in on the more kind of quieter moments. But at the same time, if you only write dessert, like eventually you gotta get your vegetables. Right. If you're only eating steak, like sometimes you get a soup. So at this point, and we write, as you pointed out, we write so much at the moment that like you got to stay on your toes. It becomes too easy to fall into your own patterns. And as soon as you start to get hidebound in what you do, then you start to get stale, and stale is death.
And then so like we were talking about, you guys are at USC, you guys become friends after this little head button. And on that road trip, you guys write your first script, and that was, I think, samurais fighting vampires came about, talking about Wolverine. But my question from that time is, there's a big jump between, oh, we are good at this, and oh, we can do this for a living. So when you guys came up with this script, you guys were like, wow, we work very well together. What was the point where you guys were like, wow, like we could do this for a living, we could write comic books? Because I also know you guys were film students, so obviously film was kind of in your guys' mind at first, it seems like. So where did the transition to comic books come in? And like I said, did you guys have a kind of aha moment like that, like, wow, we could get paid to do this?
Wow, another great question. I feel like if we do a keynote or a spotlight panel, we got to bring you in as our host.
Hey, let's do it. I'm available.
So yeah, our journey coming out of school, our journey was 100% Hollywood. We had basically we had connections within thanks to our schooling. We had met some people who were over in the industry agency side. So basically coming back with the script where we're like, well, I guess we're a writing team now. Oops. Oops. A writing team, at least on this project. Let's see how it goes. And that project got picked up almost immediately by Fox. It was attached with John Moore, who did Black Hawk Down and a couple of movies. Like he's kind of legit. And it then spent a year getting rewritten to high hell, just absolutely taken apart. And through that process, we realized like, oh, if we want to survive, if we want to do this, and we do. We love Hollywood, we love film, we love TV. It's what we'd come to school for. It's what our focuses was. But if we wanted to do this, you need to play for the long game, because that was us kind of being an overnight success, which was awesome. But also you're 21 and you don't know shit, right? So it's like that process. Basically, we spent most of our 20s navigating the Hollywood landscape and getting really good at it, but also realizing that the only way to achieve success is by playing the long game. So we have day jobs. I worked at I have lots of jobs. Jack pretty much only worked in post-production, eventually kind of becoming effectively the creative lead of his own ad agency. I bipped all over the place, but primarily worked in higher education. I worked at a bunch of schools. Then I worked at USC, back at my alma mater, for quite a while. So we're hustling and we're selling things and we're making some money here and there, but like not nearly enough to live on. Like, Hollywood is 90% of the work is invisible and it's free. So we have a whole shelf of screenplays that have been attached to people that that with directors who fucking rip, and attached to properties that you fucking love and that fucking rip. Some that are incredible and would blow your fucking mind. But did they happen? Did they even pay us often? Or pay us well? Like, nope. So that's where we kind of got weaponized. It didn't stop us. But we basically hit a point where we wrote a feature that our management and our agency just didn't get. They also repped Max Landis, who is kind of faded into the shadows as he should have, but like also very popular, very pop, very comic book central. So like we were kind of ugly stepchildren and they didn't really know what to do with us. So we fired our agency team. And right around that same time, during all of this, Jack had put together his first comic with our third member, the guy
David. Freak Show, am I correct?
Oh, maybe, yeah. If real heads want to find a copy of Freak Show, I think I might be the only person left who has a trade dress of Freak Show.
I'm about to go on the hunt when we get off of here. Let's go.
Good. It's fucking good.
Yeah.
But that's what kind of led us, because of that, Jack eventually got the call from Tay Taylor over at Archaea. Do you want to do this book called Hacktivist with Alyssa Milano? Dave passed, but Jack didn't, and said, can I bring on my Collin? And then we get started on that journey. It's another 6 years from there to the start of this year, when we quit our day jobs. And we also just recently celebrated our 15-year anniversary. So that trip to Lollapalooza was 15 years ago. And it was just this year that we quit our day jobs.
That's crazy. That must have been a good ass feeling.
Oh, it felt incredible, man. 15 years, it's been what I've wanted to do. And I finally got the chance to put down that and just do what I love full time. So you're asking like, oh, when did you know that you could do this full time? It's like, well, in my heart, I've known it for 15 fucking years, right? Like in my heart, I've known this was always going to be the target and always the dream. And I firmly believe that you fucking work hard enough on something on a long enough timeline, you will find success. But it's 15 years, baby. And I ain't rich. I mean, like, we ain't blowing the walls off anything. This was a lateral move. I'm not making more money doing this than I was in my previous job. But eventually, right, you got to like, you can either have like, right, like you can do the thing for money or you can do the thing for passion. And finally, it made sense for us to do it for passion.
I say now you're finally at kind of an equilibrium with that. And like you were mentioning too, I think it applies to everything. It's the long game. Sometimes you got to play the long game. And I just think that's so interesting to hear. And I love how you talk about it. And like, because I think a lot of people from the outside looking in, they just see, oh, these guys wrote Kang the Conqueror. These guys wrote Captain America. Like they've been, doing this forever. And I think it's just very refreshing to hear the reality of, I think that's true for not only you guys, but a lot of comic book writers that, it's a very long road. And, if you're not putting in the work and it's not going to just, oh, I wrote a good comic and now I can be rich and, live off that for the rest of my life. So I think that's just really interesting to hear. That kind of reminds me of something where let's start getting into some of your guys' work. And you guys you're talking a lot about Hollywood and your guys' experience with that and, coming up in the comic book game. I want to really quickly mention Clayface because I really loved Clayface. I thought Clayface has always been one of my favorite Batman villains, someone I think never really gets the spotlight he deserves. And I feel like a lot of what Clayface has to do and what it's saying is kind of what you're talking about with the Hollywood stuff. And were some of that stuff in Clayface kind of pulled from personal experience? I mean, obviously not the transforming into a mud monster, but like the whole not necessarily dealing with rejection, but him, trying to, figure like, oh, I have a vision and all this stuff. Is that kind of personal for you guys?
Pat Thor, let me stop you right there. It is all drawn directly from experiences. Almost everything that is said in the kind of the diner or the restaurant 2-pager, that's all things that have been said directly to our faces. We were not waiters at the Chateau Marmont, but our friend, we have a friend, Dylan DeVale, that was his job. He was a waiter to the stars at the Chateau. Like everything that all the hate and all the pain and all the toxicity that they are all going through is the bread and butter of what Hollywood works off of. And that pain, the reason we love that story, and honestly, I think it's the best thing we've ever written. It's my
that's high praise.
I love it. I think
it is so good. It is amazing.
It hurts. Right. And that was Dave Wilgos, who edited that entire series. He was our staunch champion at DC. We love him. He's our other brother. And he kept us going when no one else would hire us. So he calls us up and he's like, I'm doing this one bad day. Did Jack already tell you this story?
No, we didn't get to talk about Clayface. So this is fresh territory.
Yeah, Dave calls us and says, hey guys, let me tell you about this initiative I'm doing. It's called One Bad Day. It's being led by, Tom King. And I've got, like this entire cavalcade of amazing creators. And we're like, wow, Dave, congratulations. That sounds so cool. Why are you calling us? And he's like, I want you guys to be part of it. And we're like, that's dumb. You have all of these incredible talents. Why us? And he's like, I love you guys and you deserve to be here. Shut up. We're like, oh, okay. For what though? And he's like, says for Clayface. And we say, Dave, we love you. But like, honestly, like I love Clayface. I'm a big mud guy. I like the stuff wet. I like goopy shit. I love monsters. Like, give me that goo. But at the same time, the animated series, really Clayface's like introduction in the animated series is the perfect Clayface story. Right? Like they kind of got it one and done. James did amazing. I love Clayface's hero turn in James's detective run. Like we've had some good Clayface content and we weren't sure what else needed to be said. So why us, Dave? And he's like, oh, well, you got to take him to Hollywood. And we were like, oh, fuck. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Right. What you know. Right. Yeah. And the cool thing about that run is the best villains, well, not the best villains, but many of the greatest villains could be heroes. Right. And that's the point, I think, of One Bad Day, especially this Clayface story, is like he gets so fucking close. Right. Like, and that's the lesson of Hollywood, is that if you go alone, you will be destroyed. You will destroy yourself. But the only way you survive is community. Right. And then once again, that's writing what we know. Right. The only reason Jack and I survived is because we have each other. The only reason we can have each other is because we both have our wives. The only reason that foursome works is because we have a community. Right. Like you need your people to lift you up. And Clayface makes that wrong choice. Stands for himself rather than standing for his friends. And in so doing, poisons himself from where he could be and lets that toxicity kind of take over his world. Like, I firmly believe that if a villain could learn the lesson, then they don't need to be a villain. Then they can make the hero turn. They can find the closure they need. But they can't fucking learn the lesson, right? Like, if you can't grow, that's the greatest villainy of all. Inability to see yourself for what you're supposed to be and who you can be. So,
wow,
yeah, poured a lot of pain into that book, man.
Oh yeah, and you can feel it. I mean, that last page, so I read it when it first came out, and this is kind of not embarrassing, but just funny to think about now. But it was one of those things, like, everyone was raving about Clayface, and I was like, I like Clayface. I was like, yeah, I'll pick that up. And then I found out you guys wrote it, and I was like, oh shit, like, I know I'm gonna love this now. And then I reread it in preparation for this interview, and man, that last page is just like, ooh, it hurts my heart. It's just so heavy and deep. And it kind of goes back to something that Jackson was talking about with us. And he was saying, when you guys are writing a character and or, collection of characters, you guys are really focusing on the head and the heart of that character. And I think that with Clayface, it is a very great example of that concept. And that's also something that we've talked about plenty of times with Jackson and on other episodes, is something we really love about your guys' work is that it feels like you guys understand these characters at like a very core level. And not only that, but you've done your homework. And again, I think that Clayface is just a very great example of both of those concepts, because you just like Clayface, like I said, is kind of a lesser known villain, you could say, like compared to like Joker and Penguin and stuff like that. So the way that you were able to dissect that character the way that you did and bring all of that heart and kind of emotion to him was just a masterclass. It was just so good. I loved it.
Look, normally I like shrinking. Oh no, thank you, but no, but like, yeah, dude, yeah.
Dude,
Clayface fucking rips.
Dude.
Clayface fucking rips. I think the best thing about a Batman villain is it has to reflect the psyche of the character, right? Batman's villains are all reflections of his own broken psychosis, right? They're all explorations of mental illness in a way that themes them all into kind of the Batman mindset. But Clayface is just big mud man, right? That's not, what the fuck does that mean to Batman?
Yeah.
No, Clayface, just like Bruce Wayne, does not know what face is his. Right? Like, he has the same kind of low self-esteem that, in a lot of ways, like Bruce has from never having parents to love him. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that low self-esteem is what drives him and drives all of Hollywood. So anyway, yeah. But like, oh yeah, we're good. Thank you. But Romanico's art, I mean, like,
yeah.
What? Like,
that splash page at the end with him coming off the roof. Woo!
I would put him toe to toe with like Mitch Gerads. I think he is one of the best artists that DC has right now, and I do not know if they're using him correctly. He's on our forever list at this point. Any project we have, we're like, free?
Yeah. Hey, you free, man? Well, we want to talk about more DC stuff because you guys are knocking it out of the park everywhere, but you guys are really knocking it out with DC lately. But before we get to that, I want to quickly talk about Captain America. So again, when we had Jackson on, we went deep into Sentinel of Liberty, all the fun nitty gritty stuff, but it was, I think, 2 days before the final issue came out. So now that the final issue is out, it's out to the world. We want to talk about it just a little bit. And I know Cap has a couple things he wants to say, but I guess my first question is just, how does it feel for it to be out in the world now, for your kind of period to this long sentence for people to be experiencing it? How does that feel?
I mean, wicked bittersweet, right? Like, wicked bittersweet. The issue turned out fucking beautifully. All credit to Alana Smith for getting us the oversized finale and like really making sure that we had the space to blow it out. Like, I'm so glad we were able to make it work with Carmen's schedule. The book just would not have felt right if she wasn't able to close it out. And I think I'm really proud of the work we did. Like, I think we all could have it could have run for 1,000 issues, maybe. Who knows, right? So it's like, closing it as we did, like, this was always the intention of the ending. And I'm really proud of how we were able to execute it. I think it turned out really nice.
I think so too.
I think we were able to close it out in a way that said something. We don't want to break the toys and then walk away. Right? We've gotten that advice before, actually, from more experienced creators who are like, you know what? At the end of your story, fuck it. Like, break the toys, give the audience a wow, and then walk away, and it's the next guy's problem. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, that's kind of comics, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah.
But this is a storytelling. Maybe it comes from like, we come from the gaming space, like tabletop RPGs are a huge part of our experiences and our lives. And like, you gotta care for your audience, right? We are in a relationship. And if we're going to break your heart, like, we need to take care of you afterwards, because otherwise you're going to leave feeling like we hurt you. And we do want your fucking tears. You will never lie about the fact that our goal is nothing short of your emotions. We want those, we want your heart to fill. And we want to punch you then in the filled heart. But then we want to take care of you. So I'm really fucking thrilled that we got the chance, especially with 750, to kind of, the point here was to break Bucky and Cap up, test their friendship to the limit, and then still be able to bring them back together and prove the bond that they have as brothers. So everything else, like, who the fuck cares? We got to tell that story, and that's the story that really mattered to us, and we're thrilled by how it turned out.
Hell yeah. I mean, I think you guys absolutely nailed it. You said, 1,000 more issues. I would have bought them. I would have been right there.
I would have bought them.
Yeah, but I'm going to hand it off to Cap, because he's obviously our Cap expert here, and I know that he really loved your guys' final as well.
100%. See, right, so issue, 4 or 5 was it, whenever Bucky shot Steve through the shoulder, whenever he killed Revolution?
Yeah, 6.
6, bingo. Obviously, he's mirrored that in the final issue there, with Steve telling Bucky he trusts him and it's his choice if he wants to kill Pyre. Did you have that plan from the start, or was that more towards the end where you thought about
that? Great question. We always knew that was going to be the beat. Like, we always knew that was going to be the beat, right? It's about mirroring, right? You set it up, you got to pay it off, and it's comics, is visual. So we always knew that was going to land somewhere. Did we know it was going to be the power? No. Did we know that was going to be the setting for it? Absolutely not. But as that final story kind of came together and the pieces fell into play, it was like, once we got to that moment, it was like, that's it. That's it. And the power kind of had positioned himself as the most arch of the outer circle. So if there was someone who was really gonna get the justice hammer, we knew it was gonna be him.
Absolutely. And then that kind of reminds me too, something that me and Cap were discussing before we hopped on here, and a question hopefully maybe you can shed some light on. So like Cap said, in issue 6, we have Bucky shoot the Revolution. But that was the Revolution's move.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Bucky. That was 5. 5 is Bucky shoots the
okay.
Revolution. 6 is Bucky releases Cap and he falls.
But so my question is, so Bucky shooting the original Revolution, that was the Revolution's move, was for Bucky to shoot him and for Bucky to take over. Yeah. So we were talking about it. Does that mean technically the original Revolution won the Sentry game? Because while it was Bucky that ultimately took them down, it was his move that put Bucky in that position. So could you say that, like I said, the original Revolution is the winner of the Sentry game technically?
I think Revolution is always the winner.
Oh.
Oops, our politics.
Look at that. Ooh, spicy. I love it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that was the entire point. Like, this is how the Revolution wins the game. You cannot go toe to toe with wealth and money, with money and power. You just fucking can't do it. They're too powerful. They create a monolithic, because they are two sides of the same coin. They will always side with each other, and no one else can stand against it, because they have too much gravity. So the only way you can win is by undercutting them at the core and by revealing how fucked they are and how selfish, and getting between the two of them. Right? Like, none of us can win if Musk and Bezos are on the same sides, right? But when fucking Musk and Bezos go at it, when fucking Zuckerberg and Elon fight, literally, good. We all win.
I say we all win. Hell yeah. I'll have front row seats to that fight for sure. But yeah, like I said, we were talking about that. I was like, those sneaky guys, man. I think that means that the original, like in this whole grand scope of this game, he ultimately did win. And while it was through the use of Bucky, it's at the end, like you said it perfectly, man. That's why you're the writer here. But revolution always wins. I love that. I also wanted to bring up just something I personally really loved about the final issue. I really loved how you ended it with not only Cap going back home again, how you guys open the run, bringing him back to his apartment. He gets to hug that kid that he was teaching to fight. Like, oh, I love that so much. But the one thing that I really, really loved, and I was like, really kind of brought everything full circle for me, was the end with him running through the neighborhood without the shield, because that was my personal favorite panel from the first issue, and we talked about this a couple times on the show. To me, that panel was like, I texted Cap when I read that. I was like, yeah, I was like, this is Steve, dude. Like, this is Steve Rogers. It just exemplified everything that I think of when I think of Steve Rogers. And so for you guys to bring that back at the end without the shield and with his monologue, I just thought
with his friends.
Yes, and with his friends,
not his superhero friends, his James and Sharon running with him down the street. Like
that, there's not really a question on top of this. I just had to, like I said, it is just so good. I love how you brought it all back, and it was beautiful, man.
And man, honestly, like, we talked about it. Like, I got my start. I was reading folded up Captain America comics in the fucking mail, right? And like the thrill of getting to write, realizing like Steve runs through Manhattan with the shield facing the city. He laps the island every day so that everyone can see it. And I'm writing this, like, me, this asshole, I get to write this. And I don't know if I actually wrote that, but I did write the last, like, he runs through with everyone behind him, and like, yeah, dude, I got teary-eyed.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to get to be the person who puts that out into the world, because it just feels so perfectly Steve.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It doesn't even feel like we were writing it. We were just like, this is something that always should have been here, and we were getting out of the way for it.
Absolutely. And I even Colin Jackson even kind of mentioned that a little bit, where he was talking about how when he was, which maybe it was similar for you, but when he was writing Steve, it almost felt like it wasn't coming from him. It was like coming, like Steve was like talking like to him. Was it kind of similar for you?
Yep. We didn't know when we started that we have little Steve Rogers in our heads. But we didn't. Yeah. We just kind of like, you relax that part of your brain and you know exactly what Steve Rogers would do here, because Steve Rogers makes the best choice. He makes the most honorable, most empathetic, most like strong and fearless choice with kindness possible, and takes zero shit. And like, what that is, because that's the little voice. Anytime you do something shitty, there's that little voice in your head being like, you could have not been shitty. You just chose to be shitty. And you're like, fuck, I did, but that's Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
Right? And you just let him out.
Yeah.
That is not the case with every character. There's a lot of characters. Writing Benjamin Sisko is a fucking pain in the ass. You've got Avery Brooks there. And Avery Brooks is a little wild man. So he takes that character in all sorts of directions. But Steve, it's one of the things that like, oh, how do you feel about the finale coming out? It's like, it's bittersweet, because I could write Steve forever. I fucking love writing Steve Rogers. We will get another chance at him. We will come back around for sure. And for what it's worth, a lot of the Outer Circle, a lot of the things, the plants that we put in place in Bapu in Sentinel are going to be flooding into Thunderbolts.
Hell yeah.
So like, the cool thing about Marvel liking us is that we just get to continue playing. And we actually learned this from Donny Cates. Like, you put shit in your shit, and then you can come back to your shit later and come back to it later. Now it's like, oh, that thing they planted 5 years ago, are they geniuses? Like, maybe it's like, no, I just remembered what I wrote and then like back to it. But like, yeah, it was, we've gotten some we've gotten some really good advice from Donnie over the years, actually.
Man, that's 2 Donnie Cates name drops in 2 episodes, man. We are huge fans of Donnie over here. Obviously,
did Jack also, or did someone else?
Well, he talked about how the kind of idea, or at least the blueprint idea of using the symbol came from a conversation he had with Donnie, and he was like, "Yeah, I just changed the Venom symbol. Like, yeah, whatever, fuck it." And so, like I said,
exactly. Yeah. I was fucking same thing. Fuck it. It's like, oh, you can just do that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Jack and Donnie had a very Colin Jack relationship to kind of start with, because if you squint, they look a lot alike.
Oh wow, I never really noticed that.
To be fair, yeah.
And it used to be much more. And then Donnie like bleached his hair pink and like got all fucking like, real super stylish. But if you squint, they used to look a lot alike, so they'd get constantly confused with each other.
That's hilarious.
And it irritated them both.
Well, hopefully one of these, like I said, we are huge Cates fans over here. Gorgon, our other co-host, who unfortunately couldn't be here, he's our Venom guy. So hopefully one day we can have him on and we'll joke with him about that. But
I haven't seen him in a few years for kind of obvious reasons, but I do wish him all the best.
Yeah, well, we love Donnie. Donnie, if you're out there, we love you, man. Thank you for all your great work. But moving on back to your guys' stuff. So Cap, do you have anything else about Sentinel of Liberty before we move on real quick?
I do actually. I have one more question. Right, so you obviously still have Power living, and you brought Doom in at the end of the finale. Mm-hmm. Do you have plans for Doom and Power in Thunderbolts, if you're allowed to touch on it?
Doom and what was the other character?
Power.
Gosh, what can I say? Yeah. Doom will be in Thunderbolts.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Like, I'm not gonna say in any broad way. It is a story about global espionage. And how agents kind of how Bucky Barnes, effectively secret agent Bucky Barnes, is able to he's both the CIA and the agent in the field. He's kind of the one-man operation. He's a one-man outer circle, and he will be facing and confronting and dealing with a lot of larger power players within the Marvel U. And I don't think I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that like Doom will play into that in some way.
Wow, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks. Doom is gonna be in Thunderbolts. We talked about Thunderbolts a little bit. I mean, we just like everything you guys, right, man? We just cannot be more excited. The concept you guys got going, and not only that, but knowing that since you guys unfortunately are leaving Cap, it's nice to know that this is gonna kind of go through. Yeah, it's like kind of a soft sequel, if you will, for Cap, and
it's going to be very different. It's also a very different tone.
Yeah.
Just so all cards on the table. Like this is Fast and the Furious. Right. So I don't know if you like the adventures of Dom Toretto and his family.
Dude, all day.
We rather die in this house. Thunderbolts is our Fast and the Furious.
Hell yeah, I cannot wait for that. That's going to be so exciting. But so everyone kind of out there knows us as the Marvel boys. We read mostly Marvel, but we have been reading more DC lately. All of us have, actually. And you guys, again, have been knocking it out of the park at DC with Batman Neo-Year, Batman Neo-Gothic. You guys, let's see, Green Arrow, Grayson.
If you want to list our DC credits, you're gonna go a mile a minute.
I would say, yeah, I could spend all day just listing all the stuff you're writing. But we talked about Neo-Gothic and Neo-Year, which, by the way, congratulations on getting your kaiju in issue 2. I loved the Killer Croc that you guys did for Neo-Gothic. So awesome. But I want to talk about Outsiders, because that's one of the things that we didn't get to talk about with Jackson, really. And so you guys, when describing this book, you said that it's going to be your first in continuity book that's originally yours. And then you guys go on to say about how this story just kind of proves how fruitful of a place that DC is right now for storytelling. So I was wondering if you kind of explain that a little bit, and maybe like has DC not been as fruitful in the past, or like is there something specifically about this time in DC Comics that is making it feel like more like that?
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm putting on my little dancing shoes to make sure I don't get into any trouble here. But I think I think it's at this point we can kind of look back on the immediate history of DC, and basically up through 5G, there was a lot of editorial intervention from the top down, right? Like they had the big, like, there was just a lot of big choices that were coming from on high, and they had a specific kind of vision for what was going to be going on, and unfortunately some of those deciders read an issue of Jack and I's from we did a run on Tomb Raider over at Dark Horse.
Okay.
And the issue they had read of that was not very good. And it was one of our very early works. We could have done a lot better job, I am sure about it, but it was not particularly representative of our work. But they read it and they did not like it, and they decided that we were not very good investments. So we spent a lot of time working with Dave Wilgos, as we kind of mentioned, doing anthology series, kind of surviving over there. And we weren't the only ones. A lot of people were getting a lot of editorial oversight towards the goal of creating a giant cogent line, right? Everyone was high off the MCU, right? How do we make the MCU in comics? It's like, we did already, god damn it! Like, stop it! Just like, but with that kind of editorial changeover, a lot of the editors themselves who had been feeling that yoke, right? We don't want to ever paint editorial as got this kind of monolith. Everyone's got a boss. But as soon as effectively, Dan DiDio was fired, let go, I don't know how the phrasing it is, but like, he no longer with the company, all these other editors finally got a little bit of a chance to flex their wings and start doing what they were passionate about. And that's fucking great, because every editor, no one gets into editing comics because they think it's fine, right? No one gets into editing comics because they love money, right? You get into editing comics because you want to make bomb ass shit.
Yeah.
And like, you are here because your instincts are good, right? You don't get to work at the top too without having proven yourself to be a tastemaker. Suddenly all the editors over there were able to kind of become the tastemakers that they'd been being squashed from being able to be. And they all came out of their fucking shells, right? And now, like, Black Label's popping off, right? This is primarily we've been working with Ben Abernathy, who's now, editor-in-chief for them, publisher. He's one of their high mucky mucks, but he was just he was one of the biggest editors of Wildstorm, right? And then they had him, he was just kind of doing talent relations. That's why we knew Ben, because he was the guy who would get us into the green room and help us get free sandwiches, right? All the while he was kind of doing that while also low-key being the editor behind some of your very favorite Wildstorm books and a lot of other shit too. He's now in a position of leadership. And so when we were able to go to him and be like, hey man, we've got the craziest idea possible. This is absolutely batshit. What do you think? He knows us and knows himself well enough to be like, fucking green light, boys. Fucking go. And it's not, I think this will sell them, right? Like, it's not, ooh, the market will be good for this. It's, that sounds fucking crazy. I love it. I know you guys can execute. Let's fucking go.
That's awesome. Right? That's
awesome. That's all you want as a creator. And yes, like there are the financial muckety mucks. Like there's the ghost of how the industry is actually doing is kind of haunting every room right now. Who knows how the health of the comics industry actually is fiduciarily? But at DC, we've really been finding that, and Marvel too. I don't want to like throw the other guys out.
No, yeah. I mean, Marvel's great and all that, but
complications, right? DC very much like I think DC's kind of like, I think there's this weird energy over there because the honest to God truth is the entire budget of DC Comics could like fit in the pocket of Warner Brothers marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Like DC Comics makes $0. Just $0.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not its point. It's not making money as a comics company now. It's making money as part of a giant ecosystem.
Yeah.
Which is shitty also, by the way, is also super shitty.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it might be giving them a little bit of a freedom where they don't have to, I don't know how under pressure they are to sell best-selling books. Because they got Batman. Batman is always going to be on the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just slap Batman on things and it sells.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's just some kind of weird freedom. And in all fairness, Outsiders for the longest time was kind of couched as a Batman book. That's how it got the conversation started, even though Batman was never actually going to be in it.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have talking about this book in particular, how most of the story is going to have to do with them, Jace Fox and the name's escaping me right now.
Luke
Cassandra
Fox.
Cain. Oh, Luke Fox.
Luke Fox and Kate Kane.
Kate Kane. There we go.
Fox and Cassandra Cain are also totally other characters in the universe.
But with them, you guys have talked about how it's important for you guys to bring them out of that shadow of Batman and kind of bring them in their own, and they're kind of over the whole superhero thing. And you guys have also talked about how this is going to be your first book that's not anchored in violence, or the first Bat book that's not anchored in violence. So without getting into like specific story details, can you kind of talk about that?
Oh, I like that line. That's good.
So can you kind of explain that a little bit? And like I said, we don't have to get into specifics of the story, but just kind of your approach to that.
100%. So there's a truth about the Batman line, like the Batman corner of the DC universe, and that is fucking filled. It's absolutely filled with Bat people. They all have virtually the same power sets. They are constantly getting in each other's way. And the truth of the matter is, we all kind of know at this point that many of the people they're fighting should probably be getting psychiatric help. Like, violence isn't necessarily the best way to stop crime. It's comics, right? So violence is always the best way to stop crime, obviously, right? But in reality, there is a bit of a simmering kind of disconnect between that and how the world actually should work. So we saw when we talked to Ben, he was like, wow, we're really looking for this all started because he was like, we don't really know. We'd like to do something with Kate Kane and we'd like to do something with Luke Fox. We're not quite sure what it is. Neither of these characters can really carry their own books. Maybe if they combined, we could do something. I don't know. That was the conversation we had with Ben as we were drinking delicious Pilsners down at San Diego Comic-Con. And we came back with this, which is a way to refocus these two characters away from what everyone else in the Bat line is doing and starting addressing the problems of the world, not with punchy kicky, but with emotional intelligence and wide open eyes, understanding rather than exploding. And I think that was kind of the litmus test for how we can approach this kind of heart and mind open Bat people rather than people who are hunting criminals. And I think as soon as you start repositioning your perspective, like, is this a crime or is this a tragedy? Things really start changing. And especially when you have someone like Kate Kane, who is a veteran, right? Very much has been trained in black and white thinking, very much been trained in the necessity of going kinetic, is something that she very much understands, where Luke is much more kind of in those gray spaces and asking what it means to be a man of privilege, a man of wealth, a man of intelligence in this modern world. So these two, really, we found this great tension between the two of them as they both ideally can use each other to find the truth of how really they should be approaching the idea of being a superhero, of being a Batman in the modern context of the DCU.
Wow, I really love that. And I mean, that's very kind of personal to me as well, because I'm a very kind of, I don't know what word you would put it, but leftist or whatever. But like, I don't know, I love those memes of like, like guy went over his hours or whatever on his shift, and like Batman's coming down on him, just like beat the shit out of him for something very benign. And it's like, I don't know, I just really like that approach to it. And like you said, like sometimes criminals or people that do things maybe against the law aren't necessarily bad people. Like you said, there's ways beside, and like you said, mainly Batman villains, they need a therapist. They need a really good therapist, as opposed to, like you said, maybe just getting the shit beat out of them. So I think that's a very refreshing and interesting approach, and I think that's going to be so awesome.
That being said, like, I do want people to, we got some advice. This is great. This is advice Collin and Jackson have gotten from incredibly talented friends. We got some advice from James Tynan once. We were talking about, because like Jack and I love sad boy stories, right? And James at the time was like, guys, you got to remember, superhero comic books are professional wrestling, right? People are showing up for the story, but they still want muscle guys in bitchin' suits making big smash-ups, right? And by which he means you need part and parcel of the buy, of the social contract between you give me $4, I give you funny book, is somewhere in there your jaw is going to drop from the spectacle, right? A lot of times people equate spectacle with violence. So they're like, oh, this needs to be a punchy kicky. I fucking love punchy kicky, right? Remember, it comes back to like, I'm the explosions guy. Like, explosions, nothing but explosions, and I'm a happy camper. But man cannot eat on explosions alone. So while we are not, this book is in no way about violence. It is way about spectacle. We are going for some of the biggest stuff we possibly can. Robert Carey is this Irish artist. Very few folks have heard of him. He's kind of, air quotes, brand new on the scene, but we're going to introduce him to the world, and he fucking rips. He's so goddamn good.
Let's go. Cap, do you know him?
I don't know.
He's in the Stephen Thompson camp, kind of. Yeah, but like, it turns out Ireland just are Irish, I assume.
Yeah, that's why I was just being cheeky and asking him, like, yeah, he's Irish. Do you know him, Cap?
We know everyone. Yeah.
Jackson actually just spent 4 days in Galway,
and he didn't even call me.
What an ass.
Yeah, what a jerk.
I'm gonna have to have words with him.
But yeah, we're super excited for Outsiders. That is going to be awesome. And like I said, I've been really I read Neo Year recently. I loved that. I'm really loving Neo-Gothic. Unfortunately, I missed the first issue, so I got to go back. But like I said, that Killer Croc in issue 2 was just money. It was so beautiful.
Neo-Gothic is such a, how to put it? I love Batman Beyond. Like, Terry McGinnis is one of my boys. I introduced Jack to Terry, and Jack fell in love with Terry, but like, I love Terry. I think the Batman Beyondiverse is fucking sweet. I also am a big fan of this plus this, right? Like, give me two flavors, mash them up, baby. Yum, 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 yum. And most people are like, oh yes, like peanut butter and chocolate. I'm like, that's fine. But like, what about peanut butter and cayenne?
Ooh.
Right? Like, let's get fucking spicy.
Yeah.
So Batman Beyond Neo-Gothic was definitely, I said some stupid shit up front that everyone kind of got on board with. So it is far weirder than I think anyone is particularly ready for. And I hope that people are ready to get weird with their Batman Beyond, because it is people who are showing up are probably a little bit keyed into the nostalgia factor. Right? So it's like, here's something you didn't know you wanted. Hopefully they will get on board with it and want it. Ideally, also, though, we got Killer Croc. They're going down. There's the next issue 3, Return to the Court of Owls. Right? Like, we have got all this stuff, ideally, hopefully, that if you are a Batman fan, you're going to find it in Neo-Gothic, the stuff that's going to tie you forward, even as you might be wandering into something that's like, this is not very cyberpunk, and I definitely expect cyberpunk out of my Batman Beyond. Like, it is not. This is a gothic horror book.
Let's get weird, baby. Let's do it. I'm ready for it.
Jack and I mean, you've been reading our work. We have a penchant for like one-off psychedelic issues.
Let's go.
We think there's value in mind-altering psychedelics.
I love that. And I love the way you put that. we're bringing him up again, but I want to say it was Donnie Cates who I saw say this. And I'm sure plenty of people have said this before, but you kind of just mentioned that, and I really love that outlook of your job, or like a writer's job. It's not to give us what we want; it's to give us what we didn't know that we wanted. And I think that that's just really hits it on the head. And I love that approach because, like you're saying, I'm pretty sure this is how you guys all feel. Is like there's no sense in rehashing things that we've already seen. Like we've seen, Batman punching the Joker millions of times, but like you said, with the whole peanut butter cayenne kind of metaphor, I want to see the stuff I didn't know that I wanted. Like, oh shit, Batman Beyond's fighting a monster killer croc. I would have never thought of that, but I love this. And I think that's very refreshing and a great approach to storytelling that I really love.
I really appreciate that, man. Like it's so exhausting sometimes because like I love the hits, right? Like, yeah, I want my peanut butter cayenne, but also I'm gonna be a slut for peanut butter chocolate, right? Like sometimes I wish when we sat down, I could be like, and in this issue, Batman fights the Joker. And they punch each other, and then he says, "Ah, Batman!" And the joke's on you. Damn, and fans will love it. They'll be like, "Fuck yeah, Batman! Fucking
eat that shit up."
And they love that shit. And then oftentimes Jack's like, "Yeah, but we've read that 1,000 times." And I'm like, "I know. That's why it's called a hit."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but what if we invert it this time? And inevitably, it's like, yeah, fuck. Okay, cool. And it comes back to what you said earlier about one thing you like about us is like, tuning it towards the kind of humanist perspective often means we can't tell the same story that you've already read, which sucks because sometimes I want an easy win. Right?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
It's a fat middle pitch. We can just get this right out. We can get the solid double. And Jack's like, yeah, but what if we fucking bunt?
Yeah, but what if we
fuck, man? Why would we bunt? It's like because it's gonna make the news. It's like, okay, yeah. We'll get a run, and if we bunt, okay, let's fucking go.
And see, that's why you guys are the HiveMind. That's why you guys are a partnership. But I know we're kind of running short on time here. But before we get out of here, I do want to talk about Star Trek a little bit. So I know that me and Cap, admittedly, are not big Trek guys. We don't know much. But I know that is a special love for both you and Jackson. That's one of your guys' first kind of big nostalgia kind of things. And actually, kind of a mutual friend of ours, I got a kind of question or something to bring up from Andy over at Brave New World Comics. I was talking over with him.
Oh, Andy, how you doing, man?
Yeah, Andy, shout out. He's awesome. Love the shop. But he told me that he was like, oh, you're going to have Jackson Collin on. You got to ask them about their Star Trek board game that they made. So I got to ask, like I said, I know that Star Trek is a deep love for you guys. So can you just kind of talk about your guys' love of Star Trek? And like I said, I gotta mention the board game that you guys made about Star Trek.
I'm looking to see if I have any convenient props. Yeah, but I don't on me, unfortunately. Yeah, dude, I mean, so Star Trek is the most important piece of social commentary storytelling of the last century. I think hands down. It is the dream of utopia and multiculturalism. It is the best possible future for so many of us in so many ways, while still having a lot of fucking toxic problems in it. I think as a storytelling device, there is nothing that you can't take. There is no story that you cannot tell in Star Trek. And unlike Star Wars or superhero comics, it is not professional wrestling. It is secession. It is people. It is a black box, the polar opposite of everything that Collin came to the table with, right? It is all people in rooms having authentic, intelligent conversations, which is how all problems should be solved, right? If you need to pull a gun, you've done something wrong. And that is Star Trek's ideology to the core. Obviously, sometimes you can't escape danger, right? And sometimes Batman needs to jump out of the shadows to punch you in the face so that you don't work over your hours. Overtime is a scam that capitalism is perpetuating on you. You don't owe them anything, says Batman.
Straight.
Or fucking Jean-Luc Picard, right? Like, at the end of your shift, you will take your downtime. But Yes. So we love Star Trek for the longest time. I also mentioned that we love tabletop RPGs, big D&D fans, we play it all. We've both been on live plays on Twitch and streamed, and we're big in that scene. I just did the big D&D. There was a big D&D WGA strike out in Hollywood yesterday that I was out with the team. I've become distracted. Yeah, it was fucking cool. Critical Role was there. Dimension 20 was there. Dungeons and Daddies. I don't know if these mean anything to you, but
no, I mean I'm not in the D&D world, but I'm aware of it. I played a couple times. I'll say I want to invite to the next meeting.
I've got off track. The point of the game was we love Star Trek so much. We love tabletop role playing. We needed to create some way for us to express this love in the two spaces. So Jack hacked together his own game system out of White Wolf, which is, if you know, Vampire the Masquerade or other kind of things. It's like a system. He hacked that in, created a Star Trek combat system. And what started as a group of like 5 of us kind of playing as Star Trek. My wife is just off camera because she was one of them.
She's like, I love that game.
We did. We all loved it. Unfortunately, we loved it so much that our ship of like 5 slowly grew until eventually the game had 30 players.
Wow.
And ships all existing in a persistent universe. So like 1 week this ship would do its play, and it was on a board game, right? We're rolling dice, we're doing all this stuff. We have the stellar cartography maps out and are moving little spaceship models around the galaxy. Like it was an ongoing, persistent universe that went for almost 4 years with all of those players effectively telling the story of Star Trek post Star Trek 2009, post Ovis supernova explosion. So we basically got this chance with all of our friends who are all massive Trek fans, who are all incredibly intelligent people, to storytell this space and to kind of like exist in Star Trek and stress test a lot of the concepts that we would then end up deploying in Star Trek itself. So
that's super cool.
It was fucking incredible. Like,
so what ended the game? Did it just, life got in the way, or
the game never ends? The game is on hiatus. I made the mistake of making Jack made the mistake of being too damn good at his jobs. And I guess I had a little part in that too. And I kind of screwed us because now we have too much work. And we can't spend as much time playing tabletop RPGs with 30 people.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Andy know that the game's coming back. So, but that's so awesome to hear. And like I said, I know.
I have a secret. I don't think any of our players, the odds of our other players listening to this podcast are slim. So I'll go ahead and let you guys know that I have a secret character I've been building for many years now, which is the entire Bourke Unimatrix. You guys don't know anything about Star Trek.
Please tell me though, please.
Oh no, my God.
Please. I want to know, please.
I am playing as a Gestalt cyborg Bourke Unimatrix mind from the Gamma Quadrant. So it's like I've been playing this secret game with Jack where he has effectively a spreadsheet, a map of every planet in the Gamma Quadrant, which is uncharted. So Jack made up an entire quadrant of space just for me with all these aliens and planets and technologies. And slowly over the years, I've been like moving my little Bourke collective and, resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. Your biological and technological consistent, individuality will be added to our own. And I've just been slowly assimilating all of these other planets so that eventually, in Star Trek, the game year 9, I will be the big bad.
Ooh, let's go. You just got a text from Donnie Cates like, you son of a bitch. He's listening to this. He's like, God damn it.
Star Trek big bad.
Yeah, he's like, you've been playing me this whole time. But that's
but no, there you go. Now you're the only you guys alone, the ones who don't really care that much.
I care.
Have the deepest secret of the Star Trek.
It's just all words to me.
Yeah, I would say I might not know exactly everything that's going on, but don't get me wrong, I do care. And like I said, you guys have earned my trust. If your guys' names are on it, I'm buying it. So I fully intend on doing my Star Trek homework. I was watching some YouTube videos last night in preparation, so I wasn't completely lost with the Trek knowledge. But like I said, since we aren't the biggest Trek guys, we actually have a couple friends that are into Star Trek, and I got a couple questions. Yeah, I got a couple questions from them to kind of shoot at.
Let's go.
So, from our co-host Gorgon, that unfortunately could not be here today because he's off saving the world, he wanted to ask. I'm sorry.
With his katanas.
Yep, exactly. But he wanted to ask you. So, when writing Star Trek, was there a certain era that inspired you the most? And is there a civilization or race from Star Trek lore that you have yet to write that you hope to in the future?
Love these questions. Final season of DS9. I think the final season of DS9 is some of the best storytelling, some of the best science fiction ever put to screen. Every science fiction storyteller, every storyteller who wants to work in serialized narrative should take lessons from that season of television. It's the fucking best. As for Aliens, it's basically the first time Star Trek did like a 9-part series, right? It's just the last season of DS9 is effectively a mini series. It's all run by Ron D. Moore, who did Battlestar Galactica. So it's proto Battlestar Galactica. It fucking rips. It's just the war.
Let's go.
Alien species that I would like to use that we haven't used, was that the question?
Yeah.
We
civilization or race.
Civilization or race. I am going this is a stupid answer. There's a race from Voyager called the I can't answer that.
Okay.
We have 3 more arcs of Star Trek, and 2 of those arcs are going to feature a fucking panoply of the dopest shit. Basically, that was the game we got to play, was we asked ourselves, we have like 3 more arcs here. What are the coolest civilizations and aliens that we have not yet gotten to play with, that we will want to play with? Fucking put them in the movie, right?
Yeah.
So every answer that I could give is actually something that we are going to see.
Okay, first cut the check, baby. Nice. Let's go.
Yeah, it's fucking man, I guarantee you.
Hell yeah. Okay, that will make Gorgon super happy.
So like, and I love Star Trek Voyager.
Ooh, okay, clues out there.
Yeah, exactly. For fans out there listening, like,
Say, for our Trekkie guys out there, y'all know what that will mean. But we have one more question for you, and that's from our friend Pendar, good friend of ours. His question is going to be, what's the hardest thing about writing in an established universe with continuity and rules? Are there ways in which it's easier than writing from scratch?
Great question. Classic question. I have good things and bad things. I love working with unlicensed work. I think having a pedigree, knowing the box you can play in, right? This is Star Trek. This isn't Star Trek. This is Batman. This isn't Batman, right? All of this is licensed work. So having a box to play in, having a character voice you can understand, right? And that way it's a lot easier because you're not inventing someone new out of your mind. You're like, I know what Steve Rogers sounds like. I know what Bruce Wayne sounds like, right? I'm just executing this character who already exists. And in that way, it's a lot easier. On the flip side, sometimes it's a real bear because you're like, there's 30 years of this character. Like, guys, telling a new Batman story is really fucking hard, right?
I couldn't even imagine. Literally.
There are a lot of fucking Batman stories out there. So it's like, especially like Star Trek too. It's like, there's a lot of Star Trek stories out there. So finding ways to keep long-term licensed work fresh is a challenge. But I think we always prefer a challenge. I think you might agree. We do pretty fucking good with it, licensed work. There's nothing, I mean, not to toot our own horns, but there is nothing more fun and freeing than hitting the road with your own creative work and seeing it soar. Right? Like, it can be a lot scarier and less certain to write original stuff. And then when it hits, it's so much more validating. We've been doing a lot of licensed work over the past few years as we've been kind of getting a name for ourselves. We got some advice from Cy Spurrier early on, and it was effectively don't rush your creator owned. Make your name first, right? When you make your creator owned, no one is going to unless they're not going to show up for this new title they don't know. They'll show up for you. So spend your time building a reputation before you go and do this. Great advice, Cy. Cy's fucking incredible. So we've been doing that for the past couple years, but we're getting ready to enter into our creator-owned era. We've got some shit on deck that should be hitting 2024, 25, right? Like, and that shit is like those are our true children. Right? Like we're gonna love them more than anything else. We'll always love Steve. Benjamin Sisko, oh my god, yes, but like wait until you meet these new characters of ours, these new worlds we're going to introduce, and then you'll really see the parental glow as we introduce you to our new favorite children.
And I can't wait. And I mean, I think you have said it perfectly, and you have executed it perfectly, because like I said, I know that I am a person who you guys have earned my full loyalty. If I see your guys' name on the book, I'm gonna read it. I just read your guys' free comic book day, the Star Trek issue. I know nothing about Star Trek, but I read it because it's you guys, and I knew it was gonna be great. So like I said, I think you guys, if that was your plan, you guys executed it perfectly, because I know that's how I am, and I know a lot of people out there are exactly the same way. If they see HiveMind on a book, it's guaranteed to be pretty damn good, for sure.
Hey, before we lose you, I do want to put one other thing on your radar.
Oh, please do.
I'm just like telling everybody about this.
Thor Quest, yes, that is. I wanted to talk about Thor Quest. I've been looking hell and high water for a copy, and I got to order it offline. But I've been to Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart, comic shop.
Thank you very much. You might have to order it online then. I'm going to assume that means they're sold out.
I was saying, I think that's a good sign. But yeah, I'm super excited to read that and get it. I know it's like a children's book, but it's Thor, man.
Guys, for nieces or nephews you might have, or like anyone in your life, if you're out there, if you have a middle grade reader, Thor Quest, Hammers of the Gods. It is the first adolescent adventure of Thor, Fandral, Sif, and Loki as they go off to rescue a lost artifact for Odin. It's got art by Billy Young. It's kind of a mixed medium chapter book story. Great for younger readers, great for older readers, great for anyone in your life who wants some fun. So that's my I just did a little commercial.
Yeah, please.
We all love comics, right? But we got to hook them young. We got to hook kids young with this stuff. This is the kind of shit that's going to be in libraries, right? In the power fucking libraries. We want this on a shelf. Some kid read this and go, wow, I not only want to go read more Thor comics, I want to go read Lord of the Rings, right? Like gateway drugs, baby. There's nothing like a good book to hook someone into their best future.
I love it. Absolutely. And like you said, it's just, we're all big proponents of, getting people hooked on comics and reading in general. And as someone like we talked about, who your kind of love of comics came from your Scholastic Book Fair and your local library, it's so awesome to see that kind of come full circle with Thor Quest. And like I said, as the Thor guy, I'm trying to track it down.
I know you're in on it, bud.
My best friend, actually, growing up, he actually just had a baby maybe a month ago, just turned 1 month old. So I wanted to get it so I can read it, and then I'm going to send it off to him so he can read it to Miles when he gets old enough.
Right.
But yeah, I love it. But honestly, that's a perfect segue into, we're coming to the end of the interview now. I want to hand it off to you, my friend. This is your time. Plug away. Where can the people find you? Like you said, we could spend a whole another hour with you just listing off the books you got going on. But the main ones that you got coming out, like I said, tell the people where they can find you. What do we got coming?
Yeah, all right. Let's see if I can do this correctly. So yeah, everyone, thank you so much for coming to this interview. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm Collin Kelly. You can find me at CP Kelly. No. Yeah. God, you can find me on X. Kelly. Blah. You can find me on Blue Sky at the Collin Kelly. I don't fucking know what social media is anymore, guys. I'm really lost. I'm so confused. Like I know I'm not an old man, but I just we watched this thing evolve. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. If folks want to pick up our books, Day of Blood, Star Trek Day of Blood, the first ever Star Trek crossover event is happening right now. Star Trek and its sister book, Star Trek Defiant, have crossed over to stop the Klingon Empire from its own bloody revolution. Day of Blood volume or issue chapter 3 just came out in Star Trek 11. Pick that up from your local shop. Neo-Gothic, Batman Beyond Neo-Gothic, that's on the shelves. Go check it out. Guardians of the Galaxy, which we also write.
Love Guardians.
It's hitting its midpoint right now. So the first act has been all about tragedy and breaking. Just we talked about aftercare, right? The second act is all about putting things back together. So now is the perfect time to jump on with that. Oh, beep, bop, boop. Go to your local shop. Tell them that you want Outsiders. You do not know what Outsiders is. You have no clue, but you are excited about it because you hear it's going to kick ass. And it is. I guarantee you it is going to fucking kick ass. We are doing everything possible to make sure that is a fact. Thunderbolts. Also tell your shop that you want Thunderbolts. You want fast and you want Too Fast. You want the Too Fast, Too Furious of Marvel Comics events. There you go. There's Thunderbolts for you.
Hell yeah.
And that's me, folks. I hope everyone enjoys their comics, supports their local libraries, make sure their pets are spayed and neutered.
Well, Collin, thank you so much, my friend, for coming and nerding out with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. If it were up to us, we could keep you here all day and we'll talk about all sorts of nerdy stuff.
You got to let me go. I got comics to write.
Unfortunately, exactly. We got to let you go so you can keep coming out with amazing issues. But as far as this interview, though, I think that's going to be all we have for you guys. Again, thank you for your time today, Collin. Hopefully we can reconvene in a later date and kind of get into Thunderbolts and Timeless and all that other stuff that you guys got coming up. So,
and shit we have not even announced yet.
Yeah, I would say there's so much. Everyone out there, follow the HiveMind if you're not already. These guys can do no wrong. They're absolutely on fire, and we are just blessed and honored to have been had any time with them at all. Again, thank you so much for being here. But that's going to be all for us today, folks. Thank you so much for listening, watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, subscribe if you did, and may your stacks be fat, stay hydrated, and we will see you all next time.
Do this all day.